That's what proactive IP management is about. It's taking all the pieces that we had shown you just previously, putting them all together and working with them in a proactive manner to put them together, make them part of the business, and then deploying them into the market. And that's what we'll talk about here in terms of licensing it. And there's a couple of questions that popped up, is when to create products and when to license them. So what we'll do is we'll address that question as we get into the licensing piece. There is a question here on IP insurance. And the question is it exclusive to patents, or can it cover other IP rights too? So I'll throw that one over to you, Toussaint. I think it does cover other IP, does it not?
It can cover other forms of IP, but I think at this early stage, it is probably safest to say it provides coverage for the distinct forms of IP. So broader, more diluted forms of coverage are probably of intellectual property are covered under other forms of insurance. But the innovation in the industry is specifically focused on patents. But I believe there's also comparable coverage for copyright and trademark. But the other areas, trade secrets, know-how, unfair competition, are all more intimately tied to contractual disputes, for which there may be coverage under the commercial general liability policies that companies have in place in due course.
Okay, good question. A deep question, a lot to talk about there, but it just, the idea here is making you aware of it, getting your questions answered, and we certainly can share more with you on the insurance point. So in summing this up, understand IP management is not a reactive type of situation. It's one that has to be integrated into your current business operations, ongoing business operations, especially if you look to really be able to get the maximum value out of your IP and really put it to work and benefit your business. To understand what can happen if you don't effectively manage your IP, these are two case studies of what the consequences can be if you have a lot of IP and the market turns on you or changes, or you're not paying attention to it, or whatever the case is. In both cases, these are huge companies that faced significant market changes that ultimately led to one almost going bankrupt and the second going bankrupt. And in both cases, the biggest issue was they weren't paying attention to their IP. They had their IP, but they were focused on the heavy asset make and sell side. They weren't focused on how can we put our IP to work in the market. In the case of Texas Instrument, they reacted. And when they were facing bankruptcy, they entered a reactive mode to saying, let's go out and start licensing our IP. Now, in their case, they have a lot of valuable IP. They were able to put together a significant licensing program, which really helped turn the tables for them on the revenue and keep them out of bankruptcy. But it wasn't as much as they could have made, because had they done it proactively, they would have made far more money. It would have contributed significantly to their revenue. On the other hand, you had a situation like Kodak, which was so convinced that the market was a make and sell, especially on the film side of the business. They didn't pay attention. They had an extensive R&D, especially in digital imaging technologies. It was huge. It was extensive, but they didn't look at it. They didn't do anything with it.